Isn't that your poor mother? The woman you always...
Life creates unexpected cycles. Sometimes the people who disregard you are the ones who make you remember your own worth. And sometimes the child who excludes you learns the greatest lesson from you. This is the story of a mother who gave her son everything, but ultimately received nothing in return, and how she regained her dignity. Before continuing, I have a small request. Please subscribe, like this video, and write in the comments which country you are listening from. Because on this channel, we don't just tell stories, we listen to each other. Each of you has a story waiting to be told in your heart. Perhaps your story will be a balm for someone else's wound. If you have a story you've been keeping inside, you can send it to the email address in the description section. Because sometimes the first step toward healing is simply to share. Maybe your mother, like mine, is waiting to be loved quietly. Every ending has a beginning. My name is Margaret Chen. I am 68 years old and have lived in New York for 46 years. When I came here from China, I had only 2 suitcases and a heart full of hope. I raised my son David in a 1-bedroom apartment in Chinatown, while my husband Robert ran a small import business and I worked double shifts at a garment factory. We weren't rich, but we were happy. At least I thought we were happy. Now, looking at these photos of my only child celebrating without me, I'd wonder if all this time I've been all this time. Let's go back a bit, because every ending has a beginning. And this story actually started 2 years ago with the death of my husband Robert. He was 70 years old and had a heart attack one morning while reading the newspaper at the kitchen table. He always complained about the economy, and suddenly he was gone. Just like that. A 44-year marriage ended with a cooling cup of coffee and a newspaper falling to the floor. After Robert died, David was wonderful for 3 whole weeks. He called me every day. He helped me with the grocery shopping. He even suggested that I move in with Amanda. But when he made that suggestion, the look on Amanda's face told me everything I needed to know. Her smile was tense, her eyes were cold, and she said, "Of course Margaret would welcome you," in a tone that implied the exact opposite. I told David I preferred to stay in my own home, and at that moment, a look of relief spread across Amanda's face like the sun breaking through after a storm. Robert owned a small import company. It wasn't anything major. He just brought decorative items from China and sold them to gift shops around town. After he died, David told me the company had been sold for a reasonable price. Since I didn't understand American business, paperwork, or legal documents, he handled everything. He said that after paying off the business's debts and taxes, there was about $50,000 left, and that money had been deposited into a savings account for me. I could get by on my small pension from my years as a teacher and my Social Security check. It wasn't a comfortable life, but I had been through harder times. David is my only child, my miracle baby. I had 3 miscarriages before him. Each time, hope would blossom inside me, then silence. The doctor said I couldn't take it anymore, that I couldn't carry a pregnancy to term. So when David was born, when I held him in my arms, I realized that nothing in the world could be more precious. When he wanted to fit in with the American kids at school, I worked overtime to buy him brand-name sneakers. When he said he needed a computer for college applications, I saved money for 6 months. When he wanted to go to NYU instead of CUNY because it seemed more prestigious, I took out loans to make his dream come true, and I'm still paying off those loans today. Robert would tell me I spoiled David too much. "You're teaching him that the world revolves around him," he would say in Cantonese, shaking his head. "One day he'll think he's too good for us." I would laugh and tell him he was too hard on our son. American children were different from ours, I would explain. They were more independent, more self-confident. David wasn't being disrespectful. He was just becoming Americanized. Robert would look at me as if he wanted to say more, but he would just sigh and go back to his newspaper. After Robert died, David started asking me for money. At first, it wasn't large sums, just $200, $300. Mom, our car needed an unexpected repair. Mom, Amanda's birthday is coming up, and I want to get her something nice. Mom, Tyler needs new soccer gear. Tyler is my grandson, David and Amanda's son. He's 8 years old now and such a beautiful child. He has David's eyes and Amanda's blonde hair, and when he smiles, my whole heart fills with light. I don't get to see him as often as I'd like, but when I do, it's worth everything. The money requests became more regular. About 6 months later, David suggested I set up an automatic transfer of $500 a month. "It'll be easier for you, Mom," he said. "You won't have to remember, and it'll really help us. Raising a child in New York is expensive, you know." I knew. After all, I had raised him in New York on a factory worker's salary. But I didn't say that. I just set up the transfer as he wanted. $500 a month might not seem like much to some people, but it was a significant amount relative to my fixed income. It meant buying the cheaper brand of tea instead of the one I liked. Sometimes it meant taking the bus instead of the subway. Because the bus was 50 cents cheaper, it meant eating more rice and vegetables and less meat. But I told myself it was worth it. David needed help, and what mother wouldn't help her son? Amanda never liked me. I knew it the first time David brought her home to meet us. She was 29 at the time, worked at a luxury interior design firm in Manhattan, and made it clear she came from a wealthy family. The way she held her wine glass, the way she pronounced foreign words. The way she examined our small apartment as if visiting a poverty museum. She was polite at the first dinner, but her politeness was sharp-edged. He examined the photos on our wall, the Chinese scrolls, the red lanterns I had hung for the New Year, and said, "This is very authentic." He used the word authentic in a way that someone might say weird or outdated. He tried my food and said, "Wow, this is very different from the Chinese food I usually eat." I knew this wasn't a compliment, but a criticism. The Chinese food he usually ate was probably prepared in luxury restaurants in Tribeca by chefs trained in culinary schools. My food, however, was just food, the kind my mother taught me, the kind that had fed my family for generations. Robert noticed this too. After they left that night, he sat down at the kitchen table and said in Cantonese, "She's going to take him away from us." I told him he was being paranoid, that every mother fears losing her son to her daughter-in-law. "No," Robert insisted, "this is different. She thinks we're beneath her. He'll make her choose, and she'll choose him." I laughed it off. I wish I hadn't. A year later, they got married in a wedding that seemed more expensive than all the money we'd spent in our entire lives. Amanda's family covered most of the expenses, and everything was perfect, pristine, and expensive. I wore the dress I bought for this special day, a simple navy blue dress from the Macy's clearance rack, and I saw Amanda's mother looking at me, unable to hide her disappointment. During the reception, I sat at a table with Robert and some of his coworkers. Amanda's family sat at the head table, surrounded by friends from the country club. When it was time for the mother-son dance, I watched David first embrace Amanda's mother and dance to a song I had never heard before. Then he came over to me, and we stood together for a full minute before Amanda stepped in and told him he needed to take his husband back, laughing as she did so. After they got married, the distance between them grew. David stopped calling me just to talk. Now his calls always had a purpose. Either he needed something, or he was fulfilling his filial duty before returning to his real life. Even though I told Amanda she could address him however she wanted, she started calling me Margaret instead of Mom. "Margaret suits you better," she said with that smile of hers. "You're so independent and strong. Mom sounds too needy, don't you think?" When Tyler was born, I thought everything would change. I thought being a grandmother would bring us closer together. For 3 weeks, I cooked and served traditional Chinese postpartum meals to help Amanda regain her strength. I went to their Brooklyn apartment with ginger chicken soup, dried lily flower pork, and fish-filled bowls with green onions. Amanda looked at the food as if I had brought her poison-filled bowls. "Oh, Margaret, you're so sweet," she said, without inviting me in. But I'm actually on a very special diet program prepared by my nutritionist. It's completely organic, very healthy eating. I don't think I can eat any of this. They look too heavy. She handed all the containers back to me, and 3 weeks of my effort went to waste with a smile. I stood in the hallway of their expensive apartment, my arms full of rejected food, feeling like I'd been slapped. David must have noticed the expression on my face because he came to the door. "Mom, don't be upset. Amanda is careful about what she eats while breastfeeding. You understand, right?" I understood. I understood that my daughter-in-law thought my food wasn't good enough for her. I understood that she thought I wasn't good enough for her family, but I kept trying. Even though Amanda always had something to say, I kept bringing Tyler gifts. The clothes weren't our style. The toys weren't age-appropriate. Books weren't the kind we're reading right now. Once I brought Tyler a small jade necklace on a red string, the same one my mother had given me as a baby. "Oh, Margaret," Amanda sighed, "we don't place much importance on superstitions. We want to raise Tyler to think critically." Superstitions. She had labeled my culture, my heritage. My mother's love as superstitions. David said nothing. He never said anything when Amanda criticized me. He would just look uncomfortable and change the subject, like a child who knew something was wrong but didn't dare say it. I began to understand what Robert meant. Amanda was pushing him away from us, and David was allowing it. Family dinners were the worst. Amanda would invite me to their house for holidays, but she always made it clear that it was an obligation, not her choice. I would go with a meal I had spent hours preparing, and she would say, "Oh, you didn't have to bring anything," in a tone that implied I shouldn't have. She would place my food next to her organic, local, traditional meals, and I would watch as everyone ate hers and didn't touch mine. He would seat me at the end of the table, far from where the real conversation was happening. He would tell me to clear the plates, load the dishwasher, wipe down the counters, while he sat in the living room, sipping wine and talking with his friends about vacation homes and private schools. He treated me like a servant. And David, my son, the son I sacrificed everything for, would just smile strangely and act as if he didn't notice. One Thanksgiving, I cooked all day. I made the turkey, prepared the stuffing, made my mother's special pumpkin soup, did everything. I put it all in containers and took it to David's house. Amanda opened the door and her face fell. "Oh my God, Margaret, did you make all this?" It was clear from her voice that she wasn't pleased. She seemed annoyed. We had everything planned. "I told you you didn't need to bring anything." "I wanted to contribute," I said quietly. "It's Thanksgiving. The family should cook together." "Yes, but I spent days planning the menu." She took my containers and practically threw them in the fridge. "I guess we'll have to make do." I spent that Thanksgiving in the kitchen, alone, reheating my unwanted meal while everyone laughed in the dining room. When I emerged from the kitchen with my food, Amanda said, as if talking about a child who had made a mess, "Oh, Margaret made food too." Everyone politely took small portions and left most of it on their plates. I watched as the meals that carried my mother's recipes, my grandmother's recipes, my family's history, were thrown away at the end of the night. I cried in the car on the way home. I cried so much I had to pull over because I couldn't see the road. The next morning, I called David and told him how hurt I was, how excluded, how Amanda treated me as if I were invisible. You know what he said? "Mom, you're too sensitive. Amanda worked really hard on dinner tonight. She wants everything to be perfect. You have to understand, hosting all these people is stressful for her. It's stressful for her. It's not hurtful for me." At that moment, I finally understood what Robert had known all along. I had lost my son. Not to death. If that were the case, perhaps it would have been easier to accept. I had lost him while he was still breathing. Now, in his eyes, I was a memory from the past. Someone who couldn't fit in. Someone embarrassing. I had become a burden, and he wanted to distance himself from everything that reminded him of me. But I still sent the money. $500 every month, without fail. Because what else could I do? He was my son, my only child, the miracle baby I never thought I'd have. How could I not help him? How could I not love him even if he didn't love me back? Then last year came Tyler's 7th birthday party. I wasn't invited to that either. I found out when I called David to ask if I could take Tyler to the park that weekend. "No, Mom, that won't work. We're exhausted." From the birthday party yesterday. My heart stopped. Birthday party? When was it? There was a silence. Sunday. It was a small party. We didn't think you'd want to come. It was very noisy and chaotic. You know how kids' parties are. I knew what kids' parties were like. I had thrown many parties for David when he was little. I had saved money for months, rented a small room at the community center, prepared all the food myself, and decorated with cardboard and ribbons because I couldn't afford to buy decorations at the store. But I made sure it was a magical party for him. I made sure he felt loved. "I wish I could have been there," I said quietly. "She's my granddaughter." "I know, Mom, but Amanda was really stressed about planning and wanted to keep the guest list small. Just family members. Just family members." But apparently, I wasn't family. After that conversation, I sat in my apartment and let my life pass before my eyes. The walls were covered with photos of David from infancy to adulthood. Photos of him graduating high school, graduating college, getting married, holding Tyler for the first time. But there were almost no recent photos. Nothing from the last few years. Because I hadn't been there for any of the important moments. I had served my purpose and been removed from his life like a background character no longer needed in the story. That day, I checked my bank account. After rent, bills, groceries, and the $500 I sent David every month, I had exactly $247 left. For the entire month, $247 for unexpected situations, emergencies, and small pleasures. I was 68 years old and living like a college student, struggling to make ends meet. My son and daughter-in-law, meanwhile, lived in a 3-bedroom apartment in Park Slope, took weekend trips to the Hamptons, and shared photos of their perfect lives on Facebook. I couldn't sleep that night. Lying in bed, staring at the ceiling, I thought about Robert. If he could see how David treated me, he would be furious. Or maybe he wouldn't be surprised. Maybe he knew how this story would end from the very beginning. I thought about all the conversations we'd had over the years about David. All the times Robert told me I did too much, gave too much, expected too little in return. And each time I dismissed him, thinking he was just old-fashioned, that he didn't understand how American families worked. But Robert understood everything perfectly well. He understood that boundless love turned into exploitation. He understood that giving without expecting anything in return turned the relationship into a trade. He understood all of this, but I was too stubborn to listen. The next morning, I made a promise to myself. I wouldn't beg for him anymore. I wouldn't force my way into places where I wasn't wanted. I would still be David's mother. But I would stop trying so hard to be part of a family that had decided it didn't want me. Then came David and Amanda's 10th anniversary. 10 years had passed since I sat at the back table at that wedding. 10 years of watching my son drift further and further away from me. 10 years of swallowing my pain and putting on a brave face. I didn't expect to be invited to any celebration they might organize. I had learned not to expect anything anymore. But I hadn't expected to learn it this way. It was Tuesday night, and I was getting ready for bed. I had spent my day teaching ESL classes at the community center. It was something I did twice a week to keep myself busy and earn a little extra money. I was tired, but it was a good kind of tired. The students had been wonderful that day, a group of new immigrants from all over the world, and we were all trying to find our place in America. There, I felt useful in a way I hadn't felt in years. Before going to bed, I checked Facebook more out of habit than interest. I didn't post much. I just occasionally commented on my friends' photos or shared a recipe from the Chinese cuisine group I belonged to. The algorithm had learned that I liked food and garden photos and quotes about family love. It constantly showed me this kind of content, and it usually made me smile. But that night, at 11:47 p.m., the algorithm showed me something different. Earlier that evening, it had shown me Amanda's post. It said, "Celebrating 10 years of love with the most important people." And there were dozens of photos underneath. Amanda and David were surrounded by people I had never seen before, in an expensive-looking restaurant. Amanda's family, her siblings, David's co-workers. In the background was a banner that read, "Happy 10th anniversary to David and Amanda." There were champagne bottles and carefully arranged flower arrangements, and everyone was dressed in cocktail attire, looking beautiful and happy. I looked at each photo one by one. There were 23 of them. In some, David had his arm around Amanda. In others, they were laughing with guests, cutting cake, raising champagne glasses. And in every single one, I had never felt so invisible, so absent in my life, because I didn't know. No one had told me. I wasn't invited, and I wasn't politely declined. I was simply excluded, erased from this important moment in my son's life, as if I had never existed. As I sat in my dark bedroom with my laptop on my lap, illuminated by the screen's light, I felt something inside me break. It wasn't my heart, because that had been breaking slowly for years. But it was something else. Despite everything, perhaps a last glimmer of hope that I still mattered to my son. That light went out, and I felt him leave, bringing with him a clarity I had never felt before. I looked at the clock. It was almost midnight. It was too late to call. With that knowledge, it was too late to do anything but sit there, proof of how insignificant I was in my son's life. Still, I thought about calling, waking David up, and asking why I hadn't been invited to celebrate the anniversary. But I knew what he would say. He would say there was a meeting, that Amanda had planned it, that they didn't want to inconvenience me, or some other excuse he'd used for years. Instead, I lay in bed and stared at the ceiling until sunrise, thinking about every choice that had brought me to this point. I called David at 9 in the morning. I had stayed awake all night, and by sunrise, I had made some decisions. I wouldn't yell. I wouldn't cry. I would just tell him how I felt, and then I would stop sending him money. Not as punishment, but because I needed to take care of myself. Because $500 a month was the difference between merely surviving and truly living, and I was tired of just surviving. "Hello, Mom," David answered on the third ring. His voice sounded cheerful, probably still caught up in the excitement of the anniversary celebration. "What's up?" I saw the photos on Facebook, I said simply. From your anniversary party. There was a silence. A long silence. I could almost hear him trying to figure out what to say, how to explain it. Oh, yeah, that was Amanda's idea. She wanted to do something nice. Why wasn't I invited? Another silence. Mom, it was really a last-minute decision. Amanda organized it on the spur of the moment. We didn't finalize the guest list until a few days before. I was going to tell you later. You were going to tell me later? David, this was your 10th anniversary. This isn't a small thing. It wasn't a last-minute decision either. I kept my voice steady and calm. I wanted to be there. I know, Mom, I'm sorry, but you know how Amanda is. She had a plan in her head for the evening, and when things don't go as planned, she gets stressed. If there had been more people, the seating arrangement and everything would have been thrown off. I'm not more people, David. I'm your mother. I know, of course I know. But you have to understand, it was Amanda's night. She planned everything. I couldn't change her plans at the last minute. I felt a cold sensation in my chest. You could have asked me to come along from the start. Mom, please don't make a big deal out of this. It was just a dinner. It wasn't just a dinner. You were celebrating your 10th anniversary. You were celebrating your marriage, and I wasn't there. I took a breath. I missed Tyler's birthday parties. I missed family dinners. When I was invited, I sat at the end of the table like a stranger. Amanda treated me like a servant, and you didn't say anything. You didn't do anything. I'm your mother, David. When did I stop mattering? That's not fair. I love you, Mom. You know that. Is that so? Because love isn't just words, David. It requires action. When others treat the people you love badly, it requires standing up for them. And you didn't do that. Not once in 10 years. He was silent. In the background, I could hear Amanda asking who he was talking to. Mom, he said, probably putting his hand over the phone, but I could still hear him. Amanda said something I couldn't quite make out, and David came back on the phone. Look, Mom, I have to go. We can talk about this later. No, David. We're going to talk about this now. I surprised myself with my determination. I've been sending you $500 every month for almost 2 years. That's $12,000. Do you know what that money means to me? Do you know what I gave up to send you that money? I never asked you to send that money. You offered. You suggested it. You said it would help you. You said Tyler needed some things. I sent that money because you're my son, and I wanted to help you. But now I realize I was buying your attention. I was paying to be important to you. And it's not working. So I'm going to stop sending money. What? Mom, you can't just cut it off. We included that in our budget. We need that money. You're a 42-year-old man with a good job. You don't need your old mother's money. I need to take care of myself, too. I need to take care of myself. I'm stopping the automatic transfer today. Mom, that's not fair. We rely on that money. We have expenses. We have a child. I had a child too, David. I raised him on much less money than you earn, and I did it without asking anyone for money. You'll find a way. I can't believe you're doing this. This is so selfish. That word hit me like a slap. Selfish. After everything I gave him, all the sacrifices I made, putting his needs before my own for 42 years, he was calling me selfish. I have to go now, David. I hung up before she could say anything else. My hands were shaking. I had never stood up to her like this before. I had never said no to her about anything. And her reaction, her prioritizing money over me and our relationship, made me realize how important I really was to her. An hour later, Amanda called. I almost didn't answer, but I did. Margaret, what's this nonsense about cutting off the money? She didn't say hello, didn't show any courtesy. She went straight, this isn't nonsense, Amanda. This is a decision I made. This decision affects our family. Your son David is very upset. I'm very upset too. We budget according to that money. You can't just pull out like that without warning. I've been giving you $500 a month for almost 2 years. I think that's enough warning that I can stop whenever I want. Enough of a warning. This is incredibly selfish. We're trying to give Tyler a good life, and you're making it harder. I'm trying to provide a good life for myself, Amanda. I'm 68 years old, living on my pension and Social Security. That $500 is a quarter of my monthly income. I need that money more than you do. If you needed it that badly, you shouldn't have offered it in the first place. David said he insisted on helping. In the background, I could hear David telling Amanda to calm down, that he'd take care of it. But Amanda wasn't finished yet. To be honest, Margaret, this is very typical behavior. You make grand gestures, then when you don't get what you want, you throw it in our faces. You're punishing us financially now because you weren't invited to a party. That's unfair. Something inside me broke. I've missed everything, Amanda. Everything. I don't know my grandchild. I'm not welcome in your house. You treat me like I'm beneath you. And I'm tired. I'm tired of spending money to be part of my son's life. I'm tired of being treated like a servant. I'm tired of feeling like I'm not good enough for your family. Maybe you're not. The words hung between us. She had said them quietly, as if she didn't want to say them out loud, but she had said them. And there it was, the truth, hidden behind all the polite refusals and subtle rejections. In Amanda's eyes, I wasn't good enough. I was Chinese, too poor, too much of an immigrant, too working class. I was embarrassing. Thank you for your honesty, I said, my voice steady despite my trembling. Now I'll be honest with you too. I don't like you, Amanda. I never did. I tried to like you for David's sake, but you made that impossible. You're cruel and cold, and you turned my son into someone I didn't recognize. The money is gone for today. Don't call me again unless it's for something else I can give you. I hung up the phone. Then I did something I hadn't done in years. I turned off my phone. I didn't want to hear David's insincere apologies. I didn't want to hear Amanda's anger. I just wanted peace. I spent the day at the bank and canceled the automatic transfer. The bank employee, a young woman named Jessica, asked if I was sure. Yes, I said. I'm absolutely sure. Then I went to the market and bought myself a steak. A real steak, not the cheap cuts I usually buy. I bought fresh vegetables, a bottle of wine, and a small cake from the bakery. I went home, cooked myself a proper meal, and ate slowly, savoring every bite. That night, I slept better than I had in months. 3 days later, my phone rang from an unknown number. I almost didn't answer, thinking David was calling from someone else's phone. But something made me pick up. Miss Chen? Margaret Chen? A man's voice, an older man, speaking with a slight accent like mine. Yes, this is Margaret. My name is Henry Wu. I was your late husband's lawyer. My heart began to beat faster. Yes, I remember you. You handled Robert's estate. That's correct. Miss Chen, I need to arrange a meeting with you. There are some matters we need to discuss regarding your husband's will. I thought everything was settled. David told me the business was sealed and the money distributed. There was a moment of silence. Miss Chen, I think it would be better to discuss this in person. Are you available tomorrow afternoon? Shall we meet at my office at 2 p.m.? Something in his voice unsettled me. Is there a problem? Is there an issue with the property? There's no problem, Miss Chen, but there are some things you need to know. Things that should have been explained to you 2 years ago. Could you come tomorrow? Yes, I'll be there. After hanging up, I sat down on my couch, my mind racing. What could Robert's lawyer want 2 years later? What needed to be explained to me? After Robert died, David had taken care of everything. He had told me that everything was very complicated, very American and legal, and that I shouldn't worry. He had said that enough of the business had been sold to cover the debts and that about $50,000 remained, which had been deposited into a savings account for me. I was living on that money along with my pension. But something in Mr. Wu's voice suggested there was more to the story. I couldn't sleep again that night. Lying in bed, I thought about Robert, about the last few months of his life. He had become distant, preoccupied. I had thought it was just the stress of work, the stress of aging, the stress of David moving away from us. But maybe there was something else. Maybe he knew something I didn't. I thought about how Robert had looked at David over the last few years with a mixture of love and disappointment. I thought about the things he had said, the warnings I hadn't heeded. Don't give that boy everything, Margaret. Make him work for the things he wants. Teach him the value of things. But I hadn't listened. I had thought Robert was too harsh, too demanding, too old-fashioned. The next day, I took the subway to Mr. Wu's office in Lower Manhattan. The office was in an old building in Chinatown, the kind with narrow staircases and offices that smelled of tea and paper. Mr. Wu's office was on the third floor, a small room filled with filing cabinets and books. He was a man in his 70s, with white hair and gentle eyes behind wire-rimmed glasses. "Miss Chen, thank you for coming." He stood up, shook my hand, and pointed to the chair across from his desk. "Please sit down. May I offer you some tea?" "No, thank you, Mr. Wu. Please tell me what this is about. You said there were things I needed to know." He sat down and pulled a thick file from his desk drawer. "Miss Chen, when your husband passed away 2 years ago, your name was listed as the primary beneficiary of his estate. However, the distribution of the assets was contingent upon certain conditions being met." "Conditions? What kind of conditions?" "Your husband was very concerned about your son David's behavior toward you. He thought David had become, in his words, too Americanized, too focused on money and status, and that he didn't show you the respect you deserved." My throat tightened. So Robert had noticed. He knew what I was afraid to admit to myself. "Robert came to me about 6 months before he died," Mr. Wu continued. "He wanted to update his will. He had sold his business for much more than you were told." "What do you mean, significantly more?" Mr. Wu opened the file and showed me a document. "Your husband's company was sold for $1.2 million. I looked at the figure. $1.2 million. David had told me that was barely enough to cover the debts. "That can't be right," David said. "I know what David told you, Mrs. Chen. David was the executor of the estate. He had access to all the information. But he didn't tell you the truth." My head was spinning. "Why would he lie to me?" "Because of the terms in your husband's will." Mr. Wu pulled out another document. "Robert arranged the estate in a very specific way. He left you $800,000 and David $400,000. But David's inheritance was conditional." "What was it contingent on?" "It depended on how he treated you after Robert's death. Your husband wanted me to observe David's behavior towards you for 2 years. If David treated you with respect and kindness, included you in his family, and behaved like a good son, he would receive his $400,000. But if he neglected you, excluded you, or took advantage of you financially, the entire inheritance would go to you." I couldn't breathe. "Were you watching us? For 2 years?" "I'm not watching, Mrs. Chen. I'm observing. This was your husband's request. He loved David very much, but he didn't trust him to treat you right without an incentive. He hoped the threat of losing his inheritance would make David a better son. But he also wanted to protect you if David failed this test." "Well, what did you observe?" Mr. Wu's face was sad. "I observed a son who excluded his mother from important family events. A son who allowed his wife to treat you disrespectfully. A son who took money from you despite having sufficient financial means himself. A son who prioritized his wife's comfort over your dignity." "Mrs. Chen, I'm sorry to say this, But David did not meet all the criteria his father set. Tears were streaming down my face, but I didn't know if they were from sadness or from the vindication of my righteousness. Robert knew. He had seen what happened and tried to protect me. It means, Mrs. Chen, that the $400,000 that belonged to David now belongs to you. Your total inheritance is $1.2 million, excluding the $50,000 that has already been distributed to you. You have $1,150,000 in a trust fund I've managed for the past 2 years. I couldn't wrap my head around that number. Over $1 million. I'm living on rice, beans, and cheap tea, sending my son $500 a month, thinking I had almost nothing. Yet all this time I had over $1 million. Why didn't you tell me this sooner? 2 years ago, when Robert died, your husband wanted me to wait. He said he would try to give everything to David, regardless of how he treated you. He wanted you to see David's true character before you learned about the money. He wanted you to understand your own worth before you had the means to buy David's love. He was protecting you, Mrs. Chen, from his own generous heart. I buried my face in my hands and cried. For Robert, who loved me enough to see things I couldn't. For David, who failed a test he didn't even know he was taking. For myself, for all those years I tried to be good enough, to be wanted, to earn the love that should be given freely. Mr. Wu handed me a handkerchief and waited silently until I composed myself. Does David know about this? I finally asked. No. The terms of the will are confidential until the outcome is determined. After I make my decision, I must conduct the official reading of the will. Then David will be informed. When will this happen? When you're ready, Ms. Chen. The decision is now yours. You can tell David yourself, or I can arrange a formal reading so he learns everything at once. But I want you to understand one important thing. This money is yours, entirely and legally yours. David has no right to it. Your husband made that very clear. I wiped my eyes and looked at Mr. Wu. I need time to think about this. Of course, take as much time as you need. The money isn't going anywhere. But Mrs. Chen, there's one more thing you should know. Mr. Wu took an envelope out of the file. This is for you. You learned the truth. Would you like to be alone to read it? Mr. Wu asked. Yes, please. He stood up and quietly left the room, closing the door behind him. I sat alone in that small office, holding the envelope in my hands, opening it to read my husband's final words to me. Thing you should know. What is it? When I informed you about the inheritance, your husband left you a letter. He asked me to give you this letter. My hands were trembling as I took the envelope. On the front was Robert's handwriting. To my dear Margaret, when you finally, dear Margaret, if you're reading this, it means I've been gone for at least 2 years, and David has shown his true colors. I'm sorry I couldn't protect you from I know that. I'm sorry I had to set these conditions instead of trusting our son to do the right thing. But Margaret, my love, I knew him better than you wanted to believe. You always saw the best in people, especially David. One of the things I loved most about you was that generous spirit, your belief that love would conquer all. But sometimes love isn't enough. Sometimes people take advantage of that love. Use it for their own gain and give nothing in return. Over the years, I watched David become more and more Americanized, start to see his heritage as something shameful, start to treat you like a source of embarrassment instead of the woman who gave him everything. Every time he chose Amanda over you, every time he belittled you, I saw your heart break a little more, and I knew that after I died, things would get even worse. Things turned out much better than we discussed. I didn't tell you because I knew you would want to give everything to David, and I couldn't let that happen. I couldn't let him take anything from you without giving anything back, not one more time. That's why I made these arrangements. I thought David had to be a good son to deserve his inheritance. And if I'm right about him and Margaret, I hope I'm wrong, but I don't think I am. Then he failed that test. This money is now yours. All of it. And I want you to use it to take care of yourself. Travel. See China again. Visit your sister. Buy yourself nice things. Live somewhere without cockroaches and leaky pipes. Don't give this money to anyone else. Don't try to buy David's love with this money. He doesn't deserve it. And more importantly, you don't need to buy love. You are worthy of love just as you are. You're probably crying right now. You're probably feeling guilty. You're probably still thinking about giving David the money, because that's who you are. But please, dear, just once in your life, put yourself first. Let David learn that his actions have consequences. Let him understand that he lost something valuable not because of the money, but because he didn't value what he had. You are the strongest woman I know. You crossed the ocean to build a new life. You raised a son in a country that isn't always kind to people like us. You worked in jobs that wore your body down so David could have opportunities. You gave everything and asked for very little in return. Now it's time for you to take, Margaret. It's time to live the life you've earned. I love you. I have loved you since the moment we met at that community center 46 years ago. And I will love you even in death. Be strong, my love. Be happy. And know that everything I have done to protect you. Forever yours, Robert. I read the letter 3 times, tears streaming down my face. Robert knew. He understood everything. And he loved me enough to protect me, even after his death, to see the things I couldn't see or chose to ignore. A while later, Mr. Wu came back into the room, and I looked at him with swollen eyes. He was right about everything, I said quietly. Robert was a wise man. He understood people. What will I do? That's entirely up to you, Miss Chen. But if you want my advice, take some time. Let this information sink in. Think about how you want your life to be. And then, when you're ready, we'll take care of David. I nodded, carefully folded Robert's letter, and put it back in the envelope. When should I tell David? Legally, there's no specific time frame since the 2-year observation period has ended. But it would be fair to let him know within the next few weeks. He might be waiting for his inheritance. I'm sure he is. I stood up, my legs trembling. Mr. Wu walked me to the door. Miss Chen, one more thing. Please be careful. If David finds out about this money, he may try to manipulate you. He may apologize, make promises, do whatever he thinks will work. But remember what your husband wrote. You need to buy love. You deserve love, just as you are. Thank you for everything. Mr. Wu, I also thank you for protecting Robert's legacy, respecting his wishes, and caring about them. It was an honor for me. Your husband was my friend, and I promised him I would take good care of you. Call me when you're ready for the next step. I stepped out of his office into the bright afternoon. Chinatown was bustling, filled with people shopping, chatting, and living their lives. Standing on the sidewalk, clutching my bag with Robert's letter inside, I felt something I hadn't felt in years. I felt free. I walked to a small park nearby and sat on a bench, watching old men play chess. And I thought about what I would do next. I could tell David everything right away. I could throw the truth in all its nakedness in his face. I could see the shock, the regret, maybe even the fear on his face when he found out it was $400,000 because of how he treated me. Part of me wanted that, for him to understand the price of everything he did, to finally feel what pain meant. But another part of me, the part Robert knew so well, wanted to give David another chance. Not because he deserved it, but because he was my son. Because despite everything, I still loved him. I thought about what Robert would want me to do. He would want me to protect myself, not let David take advantage of me. But he also loved David. He had prepared this test, hoping David would pass it, hoping our son would prove himself. I made a decision. I wouldn't mention the money to David yet. I would wait. I would see if he would reach out to me for a reason other than money. I would see if losing my $500 a month would make him realize he had taken me for granted. I would give him a chance to apologize, to change, to show me that the man inside him was still the child I had raised. What if he failed? Then Mr. Wu would read the will officially, and David would learn exactly what his behavior, what it would cost him. I took out my phone and turned it back on. There were 17 missed calls, 12 from David, 5 from Amanda. There were messages too. Mom, call me. Mom, we need to talk. Mom, you're being unreasonable. Mom, please, I deleted them all. Then I called my sister Diana in Chicago, something I hadn't done in months because long-distance calls were expensive and I was trying to save money. Margaret, is that you? Diana's voice was warm and surprised. Hi, Di. How are you? I'm fine. How are you? You haven't called in a long time. I know, I'm sorry. I was going through a difficult time. Is David being mean to you again? Even my sister knew, even Diana, who lived thousands of miles away and whom I hardly ever spoke to, knew that David wasn't a good son. Di, can I ask you something? Of course, anything you want. If I come to visit you, can I stay for a while? Maybe a few weeks? Margaret, you can stay as long as you want. What's going on? I just need to get away now, to think in a quiet place, to remember who I am, and to return to the people who truly want me. Oh, Margaret. Diana's voice was filled with emotion. Come, if possible, come tomorrow. I'll prepare the guest room. We'll cook together and chat. You can tell me everything. That's what sisters are for. Tell me which flight you're taking, and I'll pick you up from the airport. After hanging up, I went online and bought a one-way ticket to Chicago for the next day. I didn't know how long I'd be gone. I didn't know what would happen to David, but I knew I needed to get away. I needed time to distance myself from this situation and think clearly. That evening, I packed my suitcase. I left my apartment clean and tidy, paid 3 months' rent in advance just in case, and left a note on the kitchen table. I'm going to visit Aunt Diana. I need some time. Don't try to reach me. I'll contact you when I'm ready. Mom. The next morning, I took a taxi to the airport, a luxury I almost never allowed myself, but today I did. With a suitcase in my hand and Robert's letter in my bag, and a feeling of hope I hadn't felt in years, I boarded the plane to Chicago. As the plane took off and New York faded below me, I thought about what Robert had written. It's time to live the life you've earned. Maybe he was right. Maybe it was time. Diana lived in a small house in a quiet neighborhood in the south of Chicago. She was 5 years older than me. I had arrived here 10 years after she came to America. In her youth, she had married a man who worked on the railroads. The man had died young, his life filled with the sound of the rails and that tired breathing. He had left behind 2 grown daughters. The daughters now lived on 2 different coasts. But Diana had stayed in the house they had bought together, with its memories, its garden growing in silence, and its memories reawakening every morning. When I arrived at her door that afternoon, she looked at my face just once, then took me in her arms without saying a word. At that moment, all words lost their meaning. Standing on her front porch, I breathed in the scent of jasmine soap, cooking oil, and that warm, human smell that reminded me of home. And there, I cried in a way I hadn't allowed myself to for years. Not quietly, not proudly, with ugly sobs that tore from my heart, shook my chest, and hurt my throat. Diana held me the whole time. She didn't ask any questions. She didn't tell me to calm down. She stroked my hair and whispered in Cantonese, "I know, little sister. I know." When I finally stopped crying, she took me inside and sat me down at the kitchen table. The kitchen was warm and bright, with plants by the window and photos on the walls. Photos of her daughters, her grandchildren, her late husband, interspersed with photos from our childhood in China, our mother and father, the life we left behind long ago. Diana made real tea, the kind I brought from home, not the cheap bag tea from the store, and she prepared a plate of her homemade almond cookies. We sat in silence for a long time, just like sisters, and I felt something relax in my chest. "Tell me everything," Diana finally said, and I did. I told her about David and Amanda, about the humiliation at the anniversary party, about the years of exclusion and disrespect. I told her about the money I sent, about finally saying no to the phone call. I told her about Mr. Wu, about the will, about Robert's letter. I told her everything, held nothing back, and it felt like picking at a wound that had been festering for years. Diana listened without interruption. When I finished, she reached across the table and took my hand. "Robert was a good man," she said. "He saw what was happening. He tried to protect you. I should have listened to him while he was alive. He tried to tell me. He tried to warn me about David, but I didn't want to listen. You loved your son. You still love him. That's not a weakness, Margaret. That's who you are. But look what it's gotten me. Look what my love has gotten me. It gave you clarity. It gave you the truth. Now you know who David really is. Now you can decide what you want to do about it." I sipped my tea. I don't know what to do, Di. Part of me wants to tell him about the money right away, to see him realize the cost of his actions. But part of me still hopes he'll change, still hopes he'll call and apologize, not because he wants something, but because he's truly sorry for how he treated me. Then Mr. Wu will arrange for the will to be read officially, and David will find out he lost $400,000. Diana shook her head slowly. "That's a lot of money to lose. It's not about the money. It's about respect. It's about Robert's final wish, that David treat me as if I were someone important. You are important, my dear brother. This isn't measured by David's love or anyone's approval. You exist, and that is enough." Over the next few days, I settled into a routine at Diana's house. I slept late, something I never allowed myself to do. I helped her in the garden, planting flowers and vegetables. Getting my hands dirty. We cooked together, making the meals our mother had taught us, filling the house with smells that reminded me of my childhood. We watched old Chinese movies and laughed at Cantonese jokes that no one else would understand. We talked about our families, the lives we left behind, the choices we made, and the prices we paid. Diana's friends came to visit, women from our generation who had emigrated from China decades ago. Food, gossip. They treated me not like a stranger or a source of embarrassment, but like one of their own. For the first time in years, I felt like I belonged somewhere. I didn't call David. I didn't check Facebook. I tried not to think about what was happening in New York, what David and Amanda were saying about me, whether they were angry, worried, or indifferent. But on my 5th day in Chicago, that silence was broken. Diana's phone rang. It was David calling. I was in the garden at the time, the sun beating down on the earth, the wind gently swaying the jasmine branches. Diana came outside, a vague expression on her face. "He wants to talk to you," she said and handed me the phone. "It's David," she said quietly. "You don't have to talk to him if you're not ready." I looked at the phone in my hand. I could have refused. I could have told Diana to say I wasn't available. But I took the phone. "Hello, David." "Mom. Oh my God, Mom. I've been trying to reach you for days. Why did you leave? Where are you? Are you okay?" "I'm at Aunt Diana's house. I'm fine. You didn't tell me you were leaving." You just disappeared. I went to the apartment and found your note. You can't just leave like that. I was worried. Were you worried about me or why I left? There was a silence. That's not fair. David, I needed some space. I needed to get away from you and Amanda. Because of money? Mom, if it's about $500, we can find a solution. Maybe you could send $300? Or we could set up a payment plan or something. My heart tightened. Even after everything, he was still talking about money. It's not about the 500. Then what is it about? It's about respect. It's about being treated like a mother, not like an ATM. It's about being a part of my son's life instead of being pushed aside like I'm a source of shame. Then why didn't I come to your anniversary party? Do you know? Why didn't I come to Tyler's birthday? Why do you only call me when you need something, David? Another pause. This one longer. Mom, you're really being unfair right now. Amanda and I have a lot going on. We're busy. We have work. We have Tyler. And you make time for everyone else but me. That's not true. Isn't that right, David? When was the last time you called me just to talk? When was the last time you invited me over, not because you had to, but because you really wanted to? And when was the last time, when Amanda was disrespectful to me, did you stand by me? Silence. David, I'm your mother. I raised you. I sacrificed everything for you, and I don't regret a thing. But I can't keep begging for your attention. I can't keep paying for the privilege of being a part of your life. I deserve better than this. Mom, He paused. I could hear Amanda's voice in the background asking what was going on. I don't know. Wait, Mom, he's my son, Di. How did I raise him like this? This thought broke my heart. Are you sure about this? She asked. Look, can we talk about this face to face? When are you coming back? What do you mean you don't know? You live here. You have an apartment. You can't stay in Chicago forever. Aunt Diana really wants me to stay here. There are people here who understand me now. Friends who make me feel important. Mom, this is ridiculous. You're being overly emotional. You're taking everything too personally. Something inside me hardened. David, I have to hang up now. I hung up the phone and handed it back to Diana. My hands were shaking. She still doesn't get it, I said quietly. Diana sat down next to me on the garden bench. Some people never understand. They just take all their lives and never understand that relationships are mutual. You didn't raise him like that. Life shaped him. America shaped him. Amanda shaped him. But most of all, he shaped himself. We all make choices, Margaret. David made his own choices. What am I supposed to do now? You decide how you want your life to be, with or without David. That night, I couldn't sleep. Lying in Diana's guest room, staring at the ceiling, I thought about Robert's letter. Let him learn the consequences of his actions, he had written. But what kind of consequences? Losing the money he was supposed to receive? Would that teach him anything? Or would it just anger him? I thought about my grandson Tyler. He was now 8 years old and growing up in a house where his grandmother was treated like a stranger. What was he learning about family? What was he learning about love, respect, and responsibility? When he grew up, would he treat his own parents the way David treated me? The next morning, I called Mr. Wu. Mrs. Chen, how are you? I'm fine. I'm in Chicago, staying with my sister. I'm glad your family is supporting you. Have you thought about how you want to proceed? I have thought about it, and I've made a decision. I want to give David another chance. Miss Chen, I know what you're going to say, but Mr. Wu, he's my son, and before I can accept that I've lost him, I need to know that I've done everything I possibly could. I have to try one more time. What's on your mind? I want to go back to New York. I want to invite David to lunch, just the two of us. I want to tell him how I really feel, without anger or blame. I really want to give him another chance to listen to me. And if he still doesn't understand, if he still prioritizes money over our relationship, then I'll know I've done everything I can. What about the reading of the will? If David can't show me that he values me as a person, as his mother, we'll continue with the reading of the will. He will pay the price for his actions. Mr. Wu was silent for a moment. Miss Chen, I respect your decision, but please protect yourself. Don't mention money to David yet. See if he can appreciate you without realizing your financial worth. That's exactly what I plan to do. When are you returning to New York? In a few days. I need a little more time here first, but I'll call you when I'm ready. After hanging up the phone, I sat down at Diana's kitchen table and explained my plan to her. No, but I have to try. I need to know that I gave him every opportunity to be the son I raised him to be. Diana reached across the table and squeezed my hand. Then I support you, but Margaret, promise me something. If he fails this test, promise me you'll let him go. Promise me you'll stop trying to make him into someone he's not. Promise me you'll accept him as he is and move on with your life. I promise. And promise me, use Robert's money to take care of yourself. Don't give it to David. Don't try to buy his love. Try to build the life you deserve. I promise that too. I spent another week in Chicago. Diana and I went to the botanical gardens. We went to Chinatown and ate at restaurants serving food like our mother used to make. We visited the Art Institute and walked along the shore of Lake Michigan. Diana showed me a life I could have, a life where I wasn't alone, where I wasn't trying to earn love, just being myself. On my last night there, Diana's daughters came to visit with their children. The house was filled with noise and laughter. 3 generations of our family gathered around the dinner table, eating and telling stories. Diana's granddaughter Lily was 10 years old and showed me drawings she had made at school. Diana's grandson Marcus was 6 years old and climbed into my lap while the adults were talking and fell asleep there. I looked at the table and felt such a deep longing that it hurt. This is what family should be like. This warmth, this genuine love. This is what I missed when I was with David. After everyone left, Diana and I cleaned the kitchen together. "You can stay here," she said as she washed the dishes and I dried them. "You can move to Chicago. You can find an apartment near me. We could be close again, like we were when we were kids. I can't run away from my problems, Di. If you're running towards something better, that's not running away." 3 days later, on my way back to New York, I thought about it. Maybe Diana was right. Maybe after giving David this last chance and done everything I could, maybe I could move to Chicago. Maybe I could start fresh somewhere that wanted me. When I returned to my apartment in Queens, it seemed smaller and sadder than I remembered. There was a pile of mail by the door, mostly bills and a few junk mails. There was no note from David, no flowers, no sign that anyone had noticed I was gone. I unpacked my suitcase and called David. "Mom, you're back. When did you arrive?" "This afternoon. Are you okay? How was Chicago?" "It was good. David, I want to have lunch with you." "Just the 2 of us. Can you make time this week?" "Lunch? Let me check my schedule." Amanda and I have a lot going on this week. Tyler has a soccer game and Amanda has an important presentation at work. I'm not asking Amanda. I'm asking you. Can you have lunch with your mom? Of course. When? Thursday, 1 p.m. There's a dumpling shop in Chinatown near where you lived as a child. Thursday at 1 p.m. Don't be late. Okay, Mom, I'll be there. After hanging up the phone, I sat down on my couch and looked around my small apartment. I would find out in a few days. In a few days, I would find out whether David saw me as a valuable person or just someone who used to be useful to him. I spent the next few days preparing for that lunch as if it were the most important meeting of my life. In a way, it was. I rehearsed what I wanted to say and how I wanted to say it. I tried to be calm, clear, and honest, without being accusatory or emotional. I wanted to give David every opportunity to listen to me. On Thursday morning, I dressed carefully. Not overdressed. I didn't want to look like I was trying too hard, but nice. Clean pants, a simple blouse, my best shoes. I looked at myself in the mirror and tried to understand what David would see when he looked at me. An old woman? An immigrant? Someone from the world he left behind? Or was he seeing his mother? I arrived at the dumpling restaurant at 12:45 to be the first one there. It was a small, unassuming place. But the food was delicious and authentic. When David was little, living in Chinatown, we used to come here when he enjoyed spending time with me. At 1:15, David still hadn't arrived. At 1:30, he texted, "I'll be late. I'll be there in 10 minutes." At 1:45, he walked in, phone in hand, looking distracted. Without apologizing for being late, he sat down in the chair across from me. He sat down. "Hi, Mom. Sorry, it was a crazy morning. What's up? Everything okay?" I looked at my son. I really looked at him. He was 42 years old, wearing an expensive suit. His hair was well-groomed. His watch was probably worth more than my monthly rent. He looked successful and confident, nothing like the little boy I raised. "David, I need to talk to you about our relationship." He glanced at his phone. "Okay, what's up?" "Please put your phone away. You need to give me your full attention." He looked surprised, but placed his phone face down on the table. "All right, I'm listening." I took a breath. "David, I've been thinking a lot about our family, about how we used to be and how we are now. And I want you to understand something. I'm not happy with how you're treating me. Mom, we've talked about this. I'm busy. Amanda's busy. We have a child. All the time. David, please, listen to me. Let me finish." He clenched his lips and shook his head. "When you were a child, I worked 2 jobs so I could give you opportunities. I saved every penny so you could go to college. I sacrificed my own comfort, my own dreams, so you could have a better life. And I don't regret any of it. Mothers do that. They give their children everything. I know, Mom. And I'm grateful. But at some point, children have to give something back. Not money, not things. Respect, attention, inclusion, love. And David, I don't feel loved by you. I feel used. At best, I feel tolerated. At worst, I feel ignored." His jaw tightened. "That's not true." "It is. You didn't invite me to your anniversary party. You didn't invite me to Tyler's birthday. Amanda treats me like I'm beneath her, and you don't say anything. You only call me when you want something. When I finally stood up for myself and stopped giving you money, instead of understanding why I felt that way, you got angry. Mom, you're making this into a bigger issue than it is. Amanda and my life is very busy. We can't involve you in everything." "I don't want to be included in everything. I want to be included in something, anything. I want to be important to you." David's phone rang. He glanced at it. "David, I'm talking to you." "Sorry, Amanda's calling." "She's asking about dinner plans." Something inside me broke. Not loudly or dramatically, but quietly and definitively. He couldn't give me even an hour of his full attention. Even now, as I was telling him my heart was broken, he was more concerned with Amanda's dinner plans than with what his mother had said. "I understand," I said quietly. "What do you understand?" "I see that nothing I say will change anything. You are who you are, and I was foolish to think otherwise." "Mom, you're overreacting. I'm here, aren't I? I came to lunch like you wanted." "You were 45 minutes late, David. You checked your phone 3 times while sitting at the table. Yes, you're physically here, but you're not really here. You haven't been for years." "What do you want from me, Mom? Do you want me to drop everything every time you call? Do you want me to leave my wife and son choose you? That's not fair. I want you to treat me like your mother, not like some obligation you're trying to shed. I want you to respect me. I want you to defend me when Amanda disrespects me. I want to feel important to you, David. That's all I want. He rubbed his face with his hands. Look, I don't know what to say to you. I'm doing the best I can. If that's not enough for you, I don't know what else I can do. I stood up, suddenly feeling tired. You're right, it's not enough. But I'm tired of wanting you to be better. I'm tired of begging for crumbs of your attention. From now on, David, you'll have to decide how much of a relationship you want with me. The choice is yours. Mom, don't act like this. Sit down. Let's talk about this. We just talked about this. You checked your phone 3 times and were 45 minutes late. This shows me how much you value this conversation. I grabbed my bag and put the money for the meal I didn't eat on the table. Mom, wait! Are you really going to do this? Yes, David. I'm leaving, and I won't call you anymore. I won't text you. I won't show up uninvited. I won't try to force my way into your life. If you want to see me, if you want to talk to me, if you want to be a part of my life, you'll have to make an effort, because I'm tired of doing all the work. Maybe I am, but at least I feel something. At least I care. I left the restaurant and stepped out onto the crowded street. I didn't look to see if David was following me. I knew he wouldn't. I took the subway back to Queens and called Mr. Wu from my apartment. Miss Chen. He checked his phone 3 times and was 45 minutes late. He said I was being too emotional and that he was doing his best. Mr. Wu sighed. I'm sorry, Margaret. It's okay. I needed to know. I needed to give him every chance. Now, I want you to arrange for the will to be read officially. I want David to know what his father left him and what conditions it's subject to. I want him to fully understand what his actions cost him. When would you like me to arrange it? As soon as possible. I don't want to drag this out any longer. I just want it taken care of. I can arrange it for next week. How about Tuesday afternoon? That's fine. Mrs. Chen, David will be very upset when he finds out. I know, but that's not my problem anymore. He made his own choice. Now he has to deal with the consequences. After hanging up the phone, I sat in my quiet apartment and thought about everything that had happened. I thought about David as the little boy he used to be, hugging me tightly and telling me I was the best mother in the world. I thought about where that child had gone, how he had been replaced by this man who saw me as a nuisance. I thought about Robert, his letter, his wisdom, his love. He knew this would happen. He had worked to protect me from it, and in the end, I had listened to him. That night, for the first time in weeks, I slept deeply. Not because I was happy, but because I was no longer fighting. I was no longer trying to change reality to suit myself. I accepted it as it was. And in that acceptance, there was a strange kind of peace. The next Tuesday, the weather was cold and gray. The kind of November day when you just want to stay in bed with your head under the covers. But I got up early, made myself some tea, and put on my best outfit, a navy blue dress Robert had bought me years ago for a Christmas party. I had kept it in the back of my closet in a plastic bag for a special day. Today felt special enough. At 2:00 p.m. at Mr. Wu's office. David would be there. I would be there. And the truth would finally come out. I arrived at 1:45 p.m. Because I wanted to be alone with Mr. Wu for a few minutes before David arrived. The old building in Chinatown felt different today, somehow heavier, as if it knew something important was about to happen. Mr. Wu met me at the door of his office. Miss Chen, are you ready? As always ready, I said. David called 3 times yesterday asking what this was about. I told him it was about his father's estate and that he needed to be there too. He seemed confused. Doesn't he know the terms of the will? He knows there was a will. After all, he was the executor. But he never read the entire document. He signed the papers, took his $50,000 share for you, and thought it was all over. He doesn't know there's more money or that the inheritance is conditional. I sat down in the chair across from Wu's desk, the same chair I'd sat in 3 weeks ago when my whole world had been turned upside down. How do you think he'll react? To be honest, I think he'll be angry. People like David don't like to take responsibility for their actions. They don't like learning about the consequences of their actions. He's my son, Mr. Wu. A part of me still hopes that when he hears what his father wants, when he understands what he has lost and why, maybe it will wake him up. Maybe he will realize what he has done. Mr. Wu's face was gentle, but within that gentleness was a quiet sadness. Mrs. Chen, in my 40-year career as a lawyer, I've seen many families torn apart over money. I've seen children contest wills, siblings sue each other, parents disinherited. And I learned that money doesn't change people. Money reveals them. Your husband understood this. He drafted his will not to punish David, but to reveal his character. And David revealed himself, didn't he? Before I could answer, we heard footsteps on the stairs. Mr. Wu stood up. David must have arrived. My heart began to race. Here we were. After everything, the moment of truth had arrived. David appeared at the door in his work clothes, looking impatient and bewildered. Mr. Wu, Mom, what's going on? I had to leave the meeting in the middle. Thank you for coming, David. Please sit down. Mr. Wu gestured to the chair next to me. David sat down, leaving a noticeable distance between us. He hadn't looked at me yet, not really looked at me. Well, what's this about? I thought we settled my father's estate 2 years ago. Not entirely, said Mr. Wu, settling into his chair. He pulled out the thick file I recognized from my previous visit. David, when your father died, you acted as executor of his estate. Do you remember the terms of his will? Of course. He left everything to my mother. His business, his money, everything. I helped her settle everything, made sure she got the money from the sale of the business. After debts and taxes, there was about $50,000 left. Did you read the entire will? Every page? David shifted uncomfortably. I skimmed it. It was about 20 pages of legal jargon. I had a lawyer friend look it over to make sure everything was in order. Did your lawyer friend mention anything unusual about the will's structure? No. He said it was a standard will. Why? Is there a problem? Mr. Wu opened the file. David, your father's business wasn't sold for $50,000. It was sold for $1.2 million. Your father was very secretive about the success of his business. He built it up over 30 years, and in the last 5 years before his death, it became quite profitable. He had contracts with major retailers, a strong reputation, and a solid financial position. He got $1.2 million when he sold the business. David's face paled. But where's the money? If he sold the business for that much, where did all the money go? It went as your father wished. It was invested in a trust fund I manage, and specific instructions were given regarding its distribution. David looked at me for the first time. Did you know about this? I found out 3 weeks ago, I said quietly, when Mr. Wu called me to a meeting. 3 weeks? You've known for 3 weeks and didn't tell me? His voice was rising. What's going on, Mom? We could have lived off that money. We could have... That's why he didn't tell you, Mr. Wu interjected. And that's why your father arranged his will this way. David turned to Mr. Wu. What do you mean, arranged it? Then shock, then anger. It was like watching a storm form. Mr. Wu pulled out a document and placed it on the table. This is your father's will, the full text. I want you to read Section B of Chapter 7. David took the document and began to read. I watched his face as his eyes scanned the page. Shock, then understanding. This can't be legal, he finally said, his voice trembling. You can't impose such conditions for an inheritance. I'll contest this. This is entirely legal, Mr. Wu said calmly. Your father had the right to distribute his estate as he saw fit, and he chose to make your inheritance contingent on your behavior toward your mother. This is insane. Did he spy on me? Did you spy on me? David shot me an accusatory look. Were you in on this too? No, David. I knew nothing about this until 3 weeks ago. Your father arranged it before he died. He asked Mr. Wu to observe our relationship, to see how you treated me after he was gone. On what basis? A whim? That's ridiculous. Mr. Wu's voice remained steady. According to the very specific criteria outlined in your father's will, did you include your mother in important family events? Did you treat her with respect and honor? Did you value her as a person, not just a source of financial support? Did you stand by her when others treated her badly? These weren't arbitrary conditions, David. They were basic expectations of how a son should treat his mother. So what? Have you decided I failed? Based on what evidence? Based on comprehensive documentation gathered over 2 years. Your mother was excluded from your anniversary party. She wasn't invited to her grandchild's birthday. While you were taking money from her, you were earning far more than she did. Your wife treated her disrespectfully, and you did nothing to correct it. You only contacted her when you needed something. And when your mother finally stood up for herself and stopped giving you money, you called her selfish. David's face turned red. Did you record our conversations? That's illegal. There was no need to record anything, David. Your mother documented everything herself. Facebook posts, text messages, phone calls. While trying to understand why her son didn't love her, she recorded every interaction in a journal. David looked at me, and I saw something in his eyes I'd never seen before. Fear. Not the fear of losing money wasn't there, but it was there too. The fear of being seen. The fear of the truth coming out. Mom, you can't let them do this. Tell them it's not right. Tell them I'm a good son. I stared into his eyes. Were you, David? Were you a good son? I tried. I was busy. Amanda and I had a lot on our plate, but I never stopped loving you. David, when was the last time you told me you loved me without me asking? He opened his mouth, then closed it. When was the last time you invited me somewhere because you wanted me there? Not because you felt obligated, not because you had to. Silence. When was the last time you stood up for me when Amanda treated me badly? Mom, that's not fair. Amanda is my wife. I can't control everything she says or does. No, but you can control what happens around you. You can control whether you defend your mother or allow her to be disrespected. You made a choice, David. Every time you stayed silent, you made a choice. Tears were streaming down my face, but I didn't wipe them away. I wanted him to see them. I wanted him to see what he had done. Your father knew, I continued. He knew you were drifting away from us. He knew Amanda looked down on us. He knew things would get worse after he died. That's why he tried to protect me. He tried to give you an incentive to be a better son. But more importantly, he tried to show you what really matters in life. Not money, not status, not what other people think. Family, respect, love. David shook his head. This can't be. This can't be. Mr. Wu spoke gently but firmly. David, according to your father's will, if you treated your mother with constant respect and kindness for 2 years after his death, you would receive $400,000. If you didn't meet these conditions, the money would go to your mother. And you decided that I failed to meet these conditions? The evidence is clear. I documented your relationship with your mother over the 2 years. I saw a pattern of neglect and disrespect, and I decided you did not meet the conditions your father set. So my mother will get everything, the entire $1.2 million. Your mother already received $50,000 2 years ago. She will also receive the remaining $1,150,000. David looked at me as if he had never seen me before. Are you really going to take it? Are you really going to take the money that should be mine? That money was never yours, David. Your father left it to me. He gave you the chance to earn some of it, but you chose not to. You chose to treat me like a disposable thing. You chose Amanda's comfort over my dignity. You chose money over the relationship. Those were your choices. This is your revenge, isn't it? This is payback for the anniversary party. No, David, this is your father's justice. This shows you the consequences of your actions. It shows you can't treat people badly and expecting to be rewarded for it. David suddenly stood up, his chair hitting the floor hard. I don't have to listen to this. I'm going to contest this will. I'll hire a lawyer and fight this. Mr. Wu remained seated, maintaining his composure. That's your right, David, but I must say, your father anticipated this reaction. Before he died, he had this will reviewed by 3 separate lawyers. This will is final and unchangeable. You can spend tens of thousands of dollars fighting this, but you won't win. Every dollar you spend on lawyers is a dollar you can't spend on your family. My family, David laughed bitterly. My family? Which means nothing to you. The family you're ready to destroy because of some twisted test I wasn't even aware of. Your father wasn't trying to destroy your family, David, I said quietly. He was trying to save ours. He was trying to teach you something important before it was too late. But you didn't learn. You're standing here now, and you still don't understand what you did wrong. You're still blaming everyone else instead of looking at your own behavior. Because my behavior was perfectly normal? I was a normal son with a busy life. I didn't ignore you. I didn't treat you badly. I just didn't involve you in everything, and apparently that's a crime worth losing $400,000 over. It was a crime worth losing $400,000. David, you didn't just weave me out. You excluded me. There's a difference. You made me feel unwanted, unwelcome, unloved. You took my money while making me feel like a burden. And when I finally defended myself, instead of examining why I felt compelled to do so, you got angry at me. David took his coat. I can't do this. I can't sit here and be lectured about what a terrible son I am by people who orchestrated a twisted spy operation against me. It wasn't a spy operation, said Mr. Wu. It was an observation. Everything I recorded was something anyone who wanted to see could see. Your father wanted to see. He saw what was happening and tried to protect your mother from it. Congratulations. You've succeeded. You've successfully ruined my relationship with my mother. I hope you're happy. He started walking toward the door, but I stood up. David, wait! He turned, and for a moment, I saw something like hope on his face. I thought he thought I would change my mind, that I would tell Mr. Wu and forgive everything as usual. There's something I want you to know, I said. I love you. I will always love you. You are my son, and nothing can change that. But I can't keep sacrificing my honor and self-respect for your comfort. I can't keep pretending that your indifference doesn't hurt me, and I can't give you the money your father specifically said should only be given to you when you deserve it. So that's it? Are you choosing the money over me? No, David, you chose the money, not me. You chose the money every time you asked me for $500 while excluding me from your life. You chose the money when you allowed Amanda to treat me badly because standing up for me could have disrupted your comfortable life. When you were 45 minutes late for our lunch, you chose the money because your time was more valuable than mine. For years, you've chosen money over our relationship. I'm just finally accepting your choice. I never asked you for money. You offered, and I accepted because I wanted to help you. But this money should have strengthened our relationship, not replaced it. I thought that if I helped you financially, you would want me around more. I thought I could buy my way into your life with money. Your father knew better. He knew that true love cannot be bought. Love should be given without expecting anything in return. David clenched his jaw. Fine, take the money. I don't need it. I don't need you. Amanda was right about you from the start. You're cruel and manipulative, and you hate seeing me happy. These words were meant to hurt, and they did hurt. But I didn't even blink. If that's what you need to believe, David, believe it. But one day when Tyler grows up and you grow old, think about this moment. Think about what you're choosing right now, because you can't take it back. When he walks out that door, when he decides that pride and money are more important than his mother, you can't take it back. Watch and see. He left. The door slammed behind him, and the sound echoed in the small office. I stood there, frozen, listening to the sound of his footsteps going down the stairs. Then the front door of the building opened and closed, and he was gone. Mr. Wu walked around his desk and led me back to my chair. I'm sorry, Miss Chen. I know this isn't easy. I couldn't speak. I sat there staring at the door, wondering if I would ever see my son again. Mr. Wu went to the small table in the corner and poured me a glass of water. Here, drink this. With trembling hands, I took the glass and took a sip. The water was cold and real, and it reminded me that I was still here, still breathing, still alive even though part of me felt dead. What happens now? I finally asked. Now I'll transfer the money to your account. The money is entirely and legally yours. David can object if he wants, but as I told him, he can't win. Your husband guaranteed it. The money doesn't matter to me, Mr. Wu. It never did. I know, but your husband cared about you. He wanted you to be taken care of. He wanted you to have security, options, and the freedom to live your life without being dependent on a son who doesn't appreciate you. Do you think David will understand this? Will he realize what he's lost? Mr. Wu sat back down at his desk. Some people never learn. They blame others for their problems their whole lives, never looking in the mirror. But sometimes, years later, life teaches them the lessons they refuse to learn when others tried to tell them. Maybe when Tyler grows up and David is in your position, maybe then he'll understand. But by then it will be too late. Maybe, or maybe not. Miss Chen, your door isn't closed. If David truly changes, truly repents, and returns genuinely willing to build a real relationship with you, you can choose to take him back. Unless you both decide otherwise, this relationship doesn't have to end. I nodded, though I couldn't imagine David coming back. His pride wouldn't allow it. He would tell himself that I was the villain in this story, that I had stolen his inheritance, that I was cruel and jealous. He would tell Amanda, and she would agree with him. They would tell Tyler that his grandmother was cruel and greedy, and I would be completely erased from their story. What will you do now? Asked Mr. Wu. I don't know. I thought I would feel relieved when this was over. I thought I would feel better. But I just feel empty. This grief, Miss Chen. You are grieving for the relationship you wanted to build with your son but never could. This grief is real and valid. Give yourself time to feel it.